There's no denying that The Walking Dead is one of the most popular TV shows of the last decade plus, and as its mainline run soon prepares to wrap up, though the many spin-offs will keep the wheels turning, it's fair to say that there's still plenty that fans are a bit confused about. I'm Cy for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 questions that always confused you about The Walking Dead. Number 10. How long was Rick in a coma? One of the most discussed aspects of the show since its very first episode has been the length of time that Rick Grimes spends in a coma after being shot and then reawakening in the midst of the undead apocalypse. The timeline of Rick's recovery has never been concretely confirmed within The Walking Dead itself, with fans regularly speculating that he was probably holed up in that hospital bed for at least a month or two. But in 2015, while promoting spin-off Fear the Walking Dead, its showrunner and executive producer Dave Erickson told Tech Insider that the comic's creator, Robert Kirkman, had given him a rough time frame. He said Rick was probably out 4 to 5 weeks. As for how Rick was able to survive that long without food and water, it's been theorised that he was taken care of by Dr. Gail Marcones, who was shown to be caring for patients in the same hospital in the webisode series The Oath. Number 9. What happened to Laurie's bones? Early in the show's third season, Laurie dies during childbirth, and in the episode Say the Word, Rick visits the boiler room where she died. In lieu of her corpse though, he finds an extremely bloated walker, and making the understandable deduction that the walker has consumed Laurie's body, promptly executes it. Yet this still begs the question, what happened to Laurie's bones? It's been established in the show that the walkers don't eat bones, so where exactly did Laurie's skeletal remains go? Though it's not easily indicated by the episode itself, director and makeup effects supervisor Greg Nicotero confirmed in an interview with Daily Dead that Laurie's bones were very close by indeed, pointing out a blood trail that implicates that the walker dragged her body around the boiler room. Nicotero added that he made the conscious decision not to show Laurie's feasted upon remains for fear that it would detract from the impact of her demise. Number 8. Did Herschel know that Sophia was in the barn? One of the second season's prevailing mysteries is the disappearance of Carol's daughter Sophia, who in the mid-season episode Pretty Much Dead Already is revealed to be one of the walkers in Herschel Green's barn before being executed by Rick. Once fans got the shock of Sophia's discovery and death out of their system, a question emerged. Did Herschel know that Sophia was in his barn the whole damn time? Fans often point to a scene in an earlier episode, Cherokee Rose, where Shane asks what they're going to do if Sophia is already a walker. Andrea says that they'll tell Carol the truth, at which point Maggie gives her father Herschel a seemingly knowing look before Herschel shakes his head. In retrospect, many have interpreted this as confirming that Herschel and Maggie knew that Sophia was in the barn the whole time. On the opposite side though, it's also established that the walkers were placed in the barn by Otis, and given that he was soon enough killed by Shane, it's entirely possible that he simply never told Herschel that Sophia was in the barn prior to his demise. Number 7. Who was in the helicopter in the very first episode? One of the most distinctive sights from the pilot episode is Rick riding through desolate Atlanta on horseback when he suddenly spots a helicopter flying overhead. But upon following it, he ends up running into a huge horde of walkers. Ever since this episode aired 12 years ago, fans have speculated on who might be inside the helicopter and what their story could be, but alas, it's never been unambiguously confirmed. Though some believe this helicopter to be the very same that Michonne and Andrea witnessed crashing into the forest in Season 3's Walk With Me, others believe it to be a mere hallucination on Rick's part, and there are some that have simply accepted it as a remnant military vessel doing a sweep of the area. We still don't know for sure, and considering that the series has gone well over a decade without providing a definitive answer, we probably never will. Number 6. Why did the governor want the prison? As fierce as the governor undeniably was throughout his stint on the show, fans continued to be mystified as to why the authoritarian leader of Woodbury was so hell-bent on taking control of the prison. After all, Woodbury is a considerably more inviting place to see out the undead invasion compared to a soulless clinical prison. But to truly understand the governor's motivations, you need to stop thinking like a rational person. Because of course, who was the governor if not a sociopathic, power-hungry madman whose actions frequently defied the logic of a grounded human being? The notion that Rick and his group had control of the prison was an affront to the governor's ego on a basic level, that somebody else completed a task that he was convinced couldn't be done. And so, propelled forward by his own colossal ego, the governor staged not one but 2 unsuccessful raids on the prison, resulting in his own death. The phrase "hoist by his own petard" seems rather appropriate here, a man defeated by his own insatiable senseless thirst for empire and control. Number 5. Why were the walkers smarter in Season 1? One common point of confusion among fans is how much smarter the walkers appear to be in the show's earlier episodes, especially season 1, where they're shown to retain memories from their pre-walker days and exhibit far more complex motor functions. Perhaps most memorably, there's the walker child in the show's pilot episode, a young girl who Rick sees picking up and carrying a teddy bear as his most uncharacteristic behaviour for a walker. Other walkers were shown turning doorknobs, smashing windows and even climbing fences, which ultimately proved to be inconsistent with a presentation of the walkers in later seasons where they were considerably dumber. The practical answer is that the vision for the show changed when Frank Darabont was fired as showrunner, and makeup effects supervisor Greg Nicotero himself admitted that they hadn't figured out yet what the rules for the zombies were. But the trailers for the currently airing final season have made it clear that the series will finally circle back to the smart walkers, who will presumably be confirmed as another variant of Walker altogether. Number 4. Who the hell is mowing all the lawns? Silly as it might sound, it's one of The Walking Dead's most pervasive mysteries since its very first season. Who the hell is out here mowing all these lush lawns across Georgia? Despite a full-blown undead holocaust taking place, somebody evidently found the time to hop on their lawnmower and keep things looking nice and tidy. It's especially ridiculous given that the invasive plant species kudzu is prominent throughout Georgia, earning the nickname the vine that ate the South. As hilarious as it is to consider a team of committed or very, very bored people keeping the city's kudzu at bay in the middle of the Walker invasion, there isn't really any plausible in-universe explanation for this. In terms of the show's logistics, it's clearly an aesthetic thing, not to mention that covering the entirety of Atlanta in kudzu, whether practically or digitally, would be hugely expensive. Number 3. How did Lydia attach the rope to save Aaron? One of the low-key most baffling moments of the entire series happened in the recent season 11 episode No Other Way, where Aaron ends up trapped in a flooded basement with walkers clipping at his heels. Aaron is left dangling off a rusty metal pipe as the walkers claw at his body when he's suddenly rescued by Lydia, who inexplicably uses a rope to pull him free. The sequence is edited to never show how Lydia managed to quickly jerry-rig a rope system to pull Aaron clear. Given that the pipe was literally collapsing moments earlier, how exactly was Lydia able to hook up any sort of knot that would support his weight from the outside? After all, Aaron wasn't exactly in any position to help, given that he most certainly had his own hands full. Fans have suggested that the rope scene didn't come together properly in the editing room, and so the decision may have been made to just cut it entirely. It's either that or straight up lazy writing, because it just isn't clear how Lydia was able to conceivably help Aaron escape. Number 2. What was up with the hermit? Considering he only appeared in the show for all of 2 minutes, it's impressive that fans still keep asking questions about the unnamed hermit, unlucky enough to encounter Rick and company in the season 3 episode When the Dead Come Knocking. Rick, Daryl, Michonne and Oscar end up seeking shelter from the walkers in a cabin where they encounter the hermit, who is understandably startled by their presence. The hermit inadvertently attracts more walkers to the cabin, and when he goes to open the door, Michonne promptly runs him through with her sword before Rick hurls his corpse outside for the walkers to feast on while they make their escape. So what exactly was his deal? His dialogue, namely threatening to call the cops, seems to imply that he's not even aware of the zombie apocalypse taking place, and he also appears far more concerned about the living, breathing humans in his house rather than the walkers surrounding it. It's of course entirely possible that the man is either mentally ill or hopped up on drugs, but considering he was basically minding his own business until the so-called heroes ruined his whole damn life, it's a shame we never got to learn more about him. Number 1. Why doesn't anyone say zombie? It is admittedly a pretty common trope in zombie media that the characters don't say the Z word, though given the immense popularity of zombies in pop culture, it does seem a tad silly that The Walking Dead's characters say walker instead. It's an especially odd choice given that Robert Kirkman's comic books have freely referred to the undead as zombies, yet this was changed for the TV adaptation. As for why, in a recent edition of Cutting Room Floor with Robert Kirkman, he revealed that this was largely mandated by the series creator and original showrunner Frank Darabont. Darabont wanted to have the story take place in a world where zombie fiction didn't exist, and so it wouldn't make sense for anyone to use the term. Kirkman further explained, "For this story to work, you can't just have people saying you shoot them in the head, you know, just like the zombies from the Romero movies. So you have to assume this is a universe where George A. Romero didn't create the modern zombie, so we coined the term walkers for the show. At least walkers is a lot better than zeros. Looking at you, Resident Evil Netflix." And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Were you confused by these Walking Dead questions? And what plot holes and intriguing little tidbits are you still holding out hope on an answer for? Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. I've been Cypher What Culture, and have a good week.